Welcome to the Rounds to Residency podcast brought to you by MedEd University. Gain residency insights and tips to prepare for your externships, research, and professional development in healthcare. We interview preceptors and physician educators who will prepare you for your rotations and improve your clinical experience. Now here's your host, Chase DiMarco.
Yeah, now we've actually hit the record button. Let's re-begin our meaningful conversations that we've been having already, Chase.
Oh boy. Yeah, now it's thrown off. Do we want to start at the beginning and then go into it? Then we'll throw off the groove.
Right. Well, why don't you reintroduce here, like we're coming back from break or some shit. Recap what we did last recording time when you submitted that atrocious personal statement to me and got that first score. And, now we've worked on it and we're back.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it in exactly like that.
Yeah.
That atrocious score. But
that's our welcome back. That was it. Hey, guys. Dr. Dieson here, back with Dr. DiMarco. That was the soft intro, I guess.
It is now. See, guys, I love it when I don't need to do all the work. He's doing it for me. Now right. We've been introduced now. Let's just jump in and not waste our audience's time.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. Is this sharing the personal statement here?
That is.
All right. So for our audio listeners, would you give us a read here of the fabulous initial draft you submitted last time we were together?
Me? I have to?
Yep. I don't think we read it out last time, so let's make sure that's in there.
Oh boy, can I have AI do it for me? All right. So the draft one goes to the effect of, I'm writing to express my strong interest in your OEM residency at blank. After thoroughly considering my career objectives and aspirations, I'm seeking to transition into a program that aligns more closely with my clinical interests and professional goals, particularly in occupational and environmental impacts on health. During my time at my residency program, I've gained invaluable knowledge and experience in rural emergency medicine and the independence that this setting allows, and I'm eager to build on this foundation. However, there are also areas that I would like to develop which may be better suited at your program's environment. I have a personal investment in OEM, though no official training, and would aspire to learn as much as possible during my time with you. I understand that this program will be significantly different than my EM residency, and I appreciate the consideration your program would extend to an applicant in my situation. I am committed to furthering my medical training with as much diligence as I have shown so far. My decision to seek this transition is driven by a deep commitment to my professional and personal growth, as well as the realization that your program offers a better fit for my future aspirations. I'm eager to discuss this opportunity and to contribute to and learn from your team, both attendings and other hospital staff alike. I'm confident that my background and skills will allow me to be a valuable member to your team. Look forward to future conversations and answering any questions you may have. I've enclosed my CV for your review and happy to provide any additional information needed. Thank you for your consideration.
Moving.
There's a backstory behind it, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, no worries. And so we had talked last time about the initial score report, and I'll attach the documents here that folks can review and see what you got in more detail.
Oh, great. Just put me on blast there.
Yeah, because each score report comes with a breakdown for strengths, weaknesses, and some feedback. But you got a 42 out of 100 on the intro, a 55 out of 100 on your narrative coherence, a 48 out of 100 on the conclusion, a 38 out of 100 on emotional engagement, a 44 out of 100 on your professional development, 46 out of 100 on resonance with admissions committees.
I don't know. 50. That wasn't emotionally appealing.
Not too much there, unfortunately. And then 50 out of 100 for your overall readiness. And so, yeah, we had feedback for you on how to improve these things. Essentially, strengthen your introduction with a memorable anecdote or defining moment that inspired the transition to OEM. to clarify and expand on experiences that demonstrate OEM interest, end with a powerful reaffirmation of purpose or future vision in OEM, incorporate a personal story or patient encounter that catalyzed the shift to OEM, highlight a challenging case or moment that showcases critical thinking, adaptability, or advocacy related to OEM or EM, more clearly articulate how OEM aligns with your values, goals, and lived experience. And then lastly, the statement suggests a general direction, but it needs a more convincingly established readiness and depth of motivation. So I feel like you took all of this feedback to heart.
I tried to. And for anyone that wants more on the discussion of this, listen to the past or watch the past episode. We did go more in depth with our questions, conversations about the purpose of the personal statement. And we'll go into a little bit more here too. But let's see, after having this initial scoring given and the feedback given, well, what do you think?
So yeah, we have here 3 drafts in total and 3 score reports in total. And that's typically what I provide with a personal statement score report package, is because it's never enough to just submit a draft and for me to be like, hey, Chase, this sucks. So, obviously you're going to want to come back to me with that feedback incorporated, and I'm going to want to tell you how your draft compared to the original. And then we iterated one more time after that. So here we have the draft you brought back to me next. Are you down for another read? Do you want me to take a turn?
If you want to, go for it.
All right. I'll get into story mode voice here. A Tuesday night.
Movie phone guy.
Right? A Tuesday night, like most nights, seeing my 8th patient of the day and 3rd trauma victim, an autoped MVA, a home DIYer with a self-inflicted chainsaw injury, and a local industrial worker with persistent shortness of breath after a standing fall on site. Each case a stark reminder of how our work environments shape our health outcomes. A rural emergency department, though busier than many would suspect, still left me with time for introspection and analysis. This is when I realized my passion lies at the intersection of clinical medicine and the environmental factors that influence health long before patients reach the ED doors. My journey to medicine was unconventional, to say the least. While many of my colleagues followed well-trodden paths, I found myself navigating uncharted territory as I simultaneously pursued an MD, MBA in healthcare administration, and now a PhD. This multidisciplinary approach reflects my belief that the most impactful healthcare extends beyond the clinical setting, and I believe better alights my personal philosophy with that of occupational and environmental medicine. Perhaps aligns there is what we were going for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
it alights it as well.
I guess the autocorrect the grammar check, spelling check wasn't working properly.
Yeah. During my time in EM, I've gained invaluable experience in managing acute presentations and developing clinical independence. However, I've increasingly found myself drawn to the factors affecting my patients' health outside of the clinic. The workplace exposures, environmental conditions, and organizational structures that ultimately determine who ends up in my emergency department and why. What distinguishes me from other applicants is my extensive background in medical education. As a content creator, podcaster, and educator, I've dedicated myself to making medical knowledge more accessible and engaging. I've conducted over 150 interviews with healthcare professionals and educators, developed and refined teaching methods, and built platforms that reach thousands of medical learners globally. This educational expertise represents a core competency I bring to your program and demonstrates my commitment to knowledge sharing. My interest in OEM extends beyond traditional clinical practice. I'm fascinated by the interplay between workplace dynamics, environmental exposures, and public health outcomes. This holistic perspective has been shaped by my diverse experiences both within and outside medical settings. The university's OEM program represents the ideal environment to channel my varied experiences into a focused career path that addresses the complex intersection of work, environment, and health. I am eager to contribute my unique perspective to your program while garnering the specialized training that will allow me to make a meaningful impact in this vital field.
Now, I do have to apologize to all the listeners because I'm sure that was not the most exciting thing to listen to either. Hopefully, my emotional appeal was a little higher, but it seemed my focus was making that connection to OEM a little stronger and kind of displaying all the stuff I've done in medical education over the years. So let's see the score report here.
Certainly, it is a big step in the right direction. And that's seen right off the bat with your introduction score jumping up to an 88 out of 100. We actually know a little bit about why you're here. It's that you've been in EM and you're seeing these patterns of occupational exposures and areas for opportunity. There was a much clearer path throughout your story here, what we call the narrative coherence. You had a very logical, smooth flow from your clinical experience to your personal background to your future goals. So definitely liked what we saw there. Conclusion, a little bit weaker than how you started off. It kind of tied it all together with professionalism and purpose, but it definitely ended very neutral. And part of that emotional engagement is both starting with a strong hook and ending with like an emotional, impactful statement.
Yeah, it definitely didn't end very emotionally riveting.
Yep. And here's what you were already guessing is you very well demonstrated your professional development without getting as emotionally engaging as you could be. So Chase got an 80 out of 100 on the emotional engagement on this draft, but an 89 out of 100 on the professional development.
It's still interesting how different it sounds coming from you reading it versus when I read it. And, you know, obviously when you're reading in your head versus reading aloud is very different. But I think from now on, I'm going to have one of the text to speech read it for me too, so I could get an
or
outside...
a friend or partner, you know, like just have somebody else read it out loud to you and hear what your own words sound like.
Right.
I like that. That's a really cool like feedback strategy that we can incorporate from today.
Yeah.
All right. Your resonance with the admissions committee, much higher here, 87 out of 100. You're showing alignment with OEM. And you were demonstrating readiness, 85 out of 100. And that's bringing you to an overall 85 out of 100, which is excellent. My bot is trained to traditionally try and get students to over 80 out of 100 in each category. That is considered excellent. I don't strive for upper 90s because then you're just pushing towards my writing style and what my bot is going to score is optimal, which doesn't necessarily always contain your voice anymore. So this would be a reasonable stopping point, but I feel like we could still do a little bit better. And that's what we did. We did one more draft here to really punch up that emotional engagement. And I'll admit, you guys, I helped out Dr. DiMarco a bit with this draft. More than I would a student, just for expedition's sake. With students, I would iterate to get your writing to this point as well. But since this was my version here, with your help, do you mind if I go ahead and read this one as well?
No, go for it. And we wanted to get this episode out to display these to you guys too. So made it a little quicker.
Yeah. But we just wanted to make sure it's all there for our audio listeners if they need to hear this or have it transcribed somewhere. Now it'll be done.
Gonna do the drama voice.
Here we go. A Tuesday night in the rural ED. My third trauma patient of the evening. A man short of breath after a fall at his factory job. Followed by a chainsaw injury at home and a pedestrian struck in an intersection. These weren't isolated incidents. They were echoes of environments where safety protocols lag behind, workplace pressures build, and hazards go unaddressed. As I managed each acute crisis, it became increasingly clear that many of these injuries were not accidents. They were systems failures. This is where my passion lies, at the intersection of medicine, work, and environment, long before patients ever reach the ED doors. My journey to this realization has been anything but traditional. I pursued an MD and MBA in tandem, driven by a desire to pair clinical skill with healthcare systems thinking. My current PhD training builds on that foundation, focusing on organizational behavior and its influence on health equity and workforce resilience. Together, these degrees reflect my belief that impactful medicine must operate both at the bedside and beyond it, shaping the very structures that determine health outcomes. Emergency medicine has given me sharp clinical judgment, procedural confidence, and independence in high-stakes settings. But over time, I've felt a pull upstream toward the conditions that repeatedly send the same types of patients through our doors. I've seen factory workers without respirators, day laborers injured on unsafe scaffolding, and elderly patients with preventable exacerbations driven by poor air quality. These are not just clinical stories. They are failures in occupational protections and environmental oversight. What distinguishes my application is not just my clinical training or academic track, but my sustained commitment to education. As a medical educator and content creator, I've built platforms reaching tens of thousands of learners, conducted over 150 interviews with health professionals, and developed accessible tools to teach complex medical and policy concepts. Teaching is not just something I do, it's how I lead. I believe OEM desperately needs physician communicators who can translate research into policy and policy into practice. My interest in OEM is deeply personal. I've witnessed friends and patients carry lifelong consequences from occupational injuries that could have been prevented with better systems, safer protocols, and earlier intervention. I want to be a part of a specialty that doesn't just document those failures, but works to eliminate them. The university's OEM program offers an ideal environment to build that future. Its focus on policy engagement, applied research, and preventative practice directly aligns with my training and goals. I'm especially drawn to the program's integration of fieldwork and cross-sector partnerships, which I see as critical for addressing the real-world complexity of occupational and environmental health challenges. Looking ahead, I envision a career at the intersection of clinical care, public health policy, and education, serving as both a practitioner and an advocate for safer, healthier workplaces and environments. I aim to be a physician who doesn't just respond to emergencies, but helps prevent them altogether.
Definitely has a different pull to it. And, the lifelong consequences aspect kind of applies to us as well.
Yeah.
We both have chronic conditions that we're seeing from the patient side as well as the physician side. So it's very true, very personal, and has a good hook at the end as well.
Yeah, that right there, that line is the perfect finisher out of this whole thing. I aim to be a physician who doesn't just respond to emergencies, but helps prevent them altogether. That's your mic drop, walk out the door line. That is going to be what sticks in the reader's mind, the admissions committee's mind, is that end punch right there. And when I read that, I'm not an OEM doctor, but if I put on my pretend OEM doctor hat, I'm like, this guy gets it. It not just from a general, as you kind of started off in your first draft, you got it from the beginning, why OEM is here and the purpose of it, but now you showed it. And that is really how we succeed with personal statements. Is we never tell them that we get it, we show them that we get it. And you do that through storytelling.
And thinking about it, kind of from a psychology point of view too, we have different factors that influence our memory. We typically remember the beginning and the end better, or the first and the last better. So you do have a bit of that recency bias playing at the very end of your personal statement. So having that punch, like you said, is going to make it stand out, going to make your application stand out.
And, I know you were asking me before we hit record today about if I feel like I ever go too far with my students with trying to infuse emotion into the personal statements. I have not gotten that pushback yet. I have had 100% outcome success so far with students who have gone through personal statement iterations with me. But I am curious. I'm gonna, with their permission, take a set of their personal statements that were our final drafts, and I would love to have like one admissions recruiter kind of take a look at the set and give their thought on that.
That would be interesting. Get inside their
one
minds.
thing for me is it's never fake emotion or emotion that's unfitting for the scenario. It's not emotion that you didn't have yourself. It's just a refocus and a reframing of the impact. And really, as you mentioned, recency and primacy, let's throw another thing in there, which is that we activate the amygdala with emotion. You want to be more memorable than like trigger their emotion in a good way while they're reading it, right? You can be memorable in a bad way as well. You could piss them off and they're going to remember your personal statement.
So what's to stop someone from basically writing their personal personal statement like a crime novel, kind of like we were joking around reading it that way.
Right.
But that's the point of the intro of some of the old, gumshoe detective books is they hit that emotion very soon in a way that leaves some questions and leaves you wanting to read more. And we're almost doing fiction writing on a nonfiction story in a way, if that makes sense.
I see where you're coming from with this. And I would say that for the same reason I mine my students for their real emotional events that have happened, I love to ask them, what are your embarrassing moments? Like, what are the things you would prefer to gloss over in your application? Because in reality, those are the things that are your, I'm still here in spite of having had to go through this and this and this. And that's more impressive oftentimes than somebody's list of accomplishments, is almost the list of obstacles they've overcome. But more than that, it is, I feel like people have a natural bullshit factor or bullshit detector. And
I don't know. You see how the country's going.
Right. Yeah. The story for another time. But if you BS your emotions in your personal statement and BS your story, you're going to have to BS that through your secondaries. You're going to have to BS that through your interviews. And it's just not worth it. Like, the reality that I have found is we all have an interesting, unique story. We all have a path that has brought us here that is actually different from other people's. And when I watch like the R pre-med communities and stuff, I don't bother commenting right now. They all just, everything's on fire to them all the time. And I can't run in there with a bucket of water and an uncredentialed account and be like, no, it'll be fine, I swear. So, but I see you guys out there. I see you freaking out. I see the people who say being authentic is BS and doesn't work out, and that you have to make something up to sound better than you are. And it's just not the case. Well, I'm not saying there haven't been examples of people who BS'd a personal statement and it worked out. They are few and far between. The real people who get in are the people who can show they're actually committed to being there and care about being there and have a reason for being there versus anything else they could be doing.
And what I find interesting about this process, as you've been showing it to me and we've talked about it offline as well, is obviously, like you said, there are going to be some people out there that BS their personal statement or just had someone write it for them 100%. Those that typically have more resources are more likely to use those resources to their advantage. That's the way the world works, unfortunately.
FYI, you cannot hire me to write your personal statement for you like I did for this last version of Chase's. This is not a real personal statement that he's submitting. I will help you iterate your own writing there. But again, this is going to score incredibly high because my AI really likes my writing. Go figure.
So my point there is, yes, some people are going to utilize plenty of services out there. You can just pay someone $10 to write it for you. Some are going to sound better than others depending on their writing abilities, but you won't necessarily know why or what things are missing. Whereas with this scoring report, I do like having the breakdown of different sections, of seeing how well it's doing in each section and being able to focus on those weak points to kind of maximize the work you've already done.
Yeah, and that is something that I have fully fleshed out from my own 2 decades of experience. And when I was working at Kaplan, being the content manager for the admissions consulting program and accruing all of the admissions consultants' advice into one document and one overarching set. So I've trained my bot on a newly created document, not from the Kaplan ones. As you guys know, when you walk away from a company, that's all their IP. So I created a new document of what constitutes a strong personal statement. I did a lot of research into this. These 7 categories were my personal creation and development off of what I considered to be the ideal factors. But it's backed by research, it's backed by experience, and now it's getting backed by results as my students continue to succeed with this process. And so here we see the score report for our final draft. Introduction's a 97 out of 100. Gripping and immersive opening immediately situates the reader in a high acuity setting. And that's what you want to do. No matter what your story is, put me there. Put me in your shoes. Show me what you were seeing. Walk me through what you were thinking. That is how you engage me from the start. That is the whole idea behind storytelling, is don't just tell me about what you did. Don't tell me what you learned from doing it. Show me what you were doing and how you arrived at these conclusions. That is so much more impressive. And as I'm saying it, Chase, I just came to a new realization. This perfectly matches with one aspect of the 5P approach, which is that I stress to students time and time again that when they get to clinical rotations, it's not their job to demonstrate to the resident/attending their knowledge. It's their job to demonstrate their thinking. You can't just go up to them and be like, I went and saw Ms. Smith. It's pneumonia. We need to give her this antibiotic. If you walked up, or if a med student walked up to you and that was their report, you would laugh at them, right?
Yeah. And why do you think it's pneumonia? What else could it be? What's been going on differently now than last week? What other symptoms does she have? Lots of things that you need to know. And, obviously there's a couple of mnemonics you can use to remember all the different things. I think SOAP notes was another one. So SOAP just gets used so often.
Right. But case in point right there, it's not about the knowledge, showcasing just the knowledge you've gained. It's showcasing your critical thinking and your thought processes. And that's really what you're doing through this personal statement, is you're not just saying, I gained this knowledge from being an EM doctor. You're saying, here's, you're with me in the EM. We're seeing this stuff. Look at this pattern that's getting played out in front of us. And I'm there with you and making the same connections rather than just taking your word for it.
Yep. Again, it seems like fiction writing about nonfiction events. You want to get the reader into the story with you.
Yep. So narrative coherence, we got a 96 out of 100. We took you through a journey there. Conclusion, 94 out of 100. I thought it was pretty dang good. The final sentence was, but let's see. It effectively synthesized it, ended with a high impact line. Yes, left a lasting impression. Specific mention of long-term roles could offer sharper career definition. If we knew a little bit more about a certain type of OEM that you were interested in, that could maybe bring it even a little stronger. Emotional engagement, only 91 out of 100. I guess I didn't cry yet from it. I don't think it would pass the cry test with my partner yet, which is how I really know somebody's written a good personal statement. If Amy reads it and cries, box is checked. It's a good one. I don't care what Read AI says, or what my Chat GPT says after that. But so yeah, we got it sincere, professional. It's grounded in experience. We had a little bit of elaboration on one particular patient. It's saying that's how we could do better, is if we elaborated a little bit more about one patient or friend. Like, really have been like, this was Bob, not just like, here's the 3 patients I saw back to back to back in the pattern, but like,
this one in particular is visited many times. We get to know each other very well.
Yeah.
Maybe the patient died and it had a big impact on me. Something very narrow.
Right. And again, I do not encourage making stuff up. There's no need when you have the real experiences, right? We have seen stuff. We have lived through stuff. We have things that we can share. It's just a matter of choosing which moments are the most ideal to share. How do you create that impactful narrative throughout? And that is going to be through personalizing it. And that is one thing that's still missing here, is there's no personalization with the patient story.
And in retrospect, there are stories that I have shared with friends and family, either that were really tough and I just needed to share with someone, leave out the personal details, or if they ask, hey, what's the craziest thing you've seen?
Yeah.
There are stories that come to mind for those instances. Right. And if I were to take those and implement them here, then it would have more of that one-on-one emotional grab.
And that wasn't something that I could do for you. And that's not something I would ever make up on somebody else's behalf either.
Right.
There's no need to mind fake emotional stories. Reality is hard enough and complex enough. And if you've actually been around the block once or twice, you've seen some stuff. If you're trying to fake it, this is where the truth will come out. Because nobody who's been around the block has one effing story and only one story.
Yeah.
When you get a room and talk to me about it, I'm going to be able to tell if you're making up something that happened one time versus like, oh yeah, this is stuff that I've seen time and again. So we don't need to mind for fake stuff. Professional development, we killed it, man. 98 out of 100. No substantive changes needed. Thank you, ChatGPT. I nailed a category where it's like, don't even change anything, bro. Boom. All right, resonance with admissions committee, 96 out of 100. Again, I'm guessing, well, if we tailored it to the program, if allowed, which we undid for the purpose of this. But then also, if you had made it a little bit more personal, I think, again, with like what you see your future in OEM being, that would have been an even better resonance rather than just like, OEM would be, better for me. I could do bigger things. Paint a more specific future picture for me, if possible. And one thing I want to point out to listeners right now, though, is you're not beholden to this picture. And just because you're painting one for me now as a pre-medical student or a medical student of the type of doctor that you could be, I'm not assuming, and you don't have to give me the fake confidence that you're going to be that subtype of doctor. Chase knew he wanted to do OEM because he was already an EM resident at that point. We're talking, if you're in the pre-med or med student phase, you don't have to be like, I know it's OEM 100%. But you have to say, with my experience and exposures thus far, I'm inspired by this field. I could see this or something similar to it being where I could have impact X, Y, or Z. That is what I underline, highlight, emphasize for students. It's not about the job title, the salary, the role, the specialty. It's about the impact. Explain to me why you're trying to become this person in terms of the impact you're wanting to be able to have on those around you, whether that's patients, your community, public health, your colleagues, academic medicine. There is no one right answer, but start painting that picture and be willing to be a little more specific while acknowledging that you're open to more change and exposure. Again, for the pre-meds, especially more than for you. You are already trying to be like, I want to be OEM. But for our pre-meds, you can paint a picture of you being a certain kind of doctor while still saying, my exposure thus far has opened my eyes towards how impactful I could be in this specialty, but I look forward to seeing and learning about more and etc. There's always ways to frame it where you're confident, but not overconfident. You're not cocky. And the biggest thing I love doing is being able to brag about our future self, because that is so much easier and comes off so much less dickish than bragging about our current self does. And so
I think that part with
yeah, go ahead.
The painting a picture, understanding that that picture is likely to change is important, because I know something I've come across, many students I'm sure do, is, well, I don't want to go too gung-ho on this. I don't want to be too committal on this because it might change. I'm not sure. I could go this way or that way. There's 2 things, 3 things, 4 things that I could see myself possibly doing. And if I commit to one on paper, I'm committing myself to that, and I'm not confident enough that I want to go that route. And you're saying that's not really what you need to worry about, because they're not expecting us to be static. They're not expecting whatever we write on this paper to be 100% what we're going to do. It's painting a picture.
The people who say this is 100% what I want to do when they haven't been exposed to everything else yet also comes off as false bravado or misplaced confidence. Like, you don't know that you want to be a neurosurgeon that only specializes in pediatric oncological, brain tumors. I mean, maybe you've had some exposure to that in your life, and that's a starting point, and you're like, this is really important to me. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon to fix spines because I watched my older brother break his back in front of me in a jet ski accident. I didn't become a neurosurgeon. By the time I actually got to medical school, I didn't even want to be a neurosurgeon anymore. I wanted to be an emergency medicine physician. I managed to stick with that through medical school and matched into EM residency. Did not end up completing. Story for another time. But again, it didn't matter that my initial impetus was to be a neurosurgeon and that I didn't stick with it. The impetus was that I wanted to be able to have a similar impact that those physicians had for my brother. That somebody who at 18 years old was thought to be in a state where he was going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life, and he was able to regain his ability to walk. That was profoundly impactful.
I think we covered some of this in the first episode. And the more specific your focus is claiming to be, I would say probably the stronger your story needs to be for why it's that super focus. Because most of us are going in there with weighing many options, and that's good. It means you're moldable. It means that the program can work with you, and if you're not too rigid on what you want to do. But I'd say we've covered some really good topics over these 2 episodes.
I liked what you were ending on there about one of the things that you were acknowledging is kind of what this suggestion for perfection was getting at too. So what we did was we established your identity already. And we talked about some of those high level things. We kept that balanced tone throughout. Perfect. Confident without arrogance. Humble without minimizing achievements. That is the balance we're going for. But
Hard
also,
balance.
you were mentioning a little bit of like moldable, still learnable. You want to come in that you can bring something to them, but also that you are still shapeable too. You know, people want to feel like they can have their impact on the next generation of clinicians. So I liked this suggestion. You could briefly acknowledge a future challenge that you're prepared to tackle or learn through the program. Like self-identifying a weaker area that this would help you better be able to understand or tackle, like data integration into how clinical decisions are made or how OEM policies are created.
All right, our data informatics is a part of getting the stats about how this occupation has higher risks of, or certain cancers compared to another. Those are things that would be interesting to mention. Obviously, these are going to be quite different if you're going into residency versus medical school, but a lot of the principles are the same. Yep. Making it emotional, displaying without being cocky.
Yep.
I would say we've covered quite a bit about the personal statements here.
We've Thanks given for being a lot of my examples. Guinea pigs for it.
Yeah. I apologize to the audio audience having to, listen through that first one or two, but hopefully it gives a good example. That's the hardest thing, is seeing an example of a bad one and then seeing an example of a good one. It's hard to find that and to have the comparisons made, why this one's bad, why this one's good. So hopefully if you stuck it out through these 2 episodes, you've learned something. Obviously contact Dr. Dieson if you'd like to have your scorecard created.
Yeah. And hey, I would say
DDQX.
Yeah, Dr. Dieson at ddqxlearning.org. Also, if somebody wanted to volunteer for a future episode, we could maybe get them a free score report breakdown here if they let us, pick it apart and poke a little fun along the way.
There you go. Free services to be a guinea pig. I mean, I'd sign up for that. Well, I started most of this podcast to get free services.
Right? Exactly. So yeah, if it just takes getting involved and being willing to put yourself out there sometimes. So if you don't want
to talk to people about that or anything, or have you come guest host or talk about some challenge you've had, like whatever it is, there's a place for you.
Heck yeah. Because we don't all find the easy road there. We go through our 10 rounds and take our punches. Bringing back the theme.
Yep. So that was round 2.5, I guess.
Yep. 2.5.
Something like that. We'll see if we keep up with all 10 rounds here or lose track in the middle or switch around the order. It's very likely. But anyway.
Yeah. We'll see. It's because we've taken so many hits, guys. We lose track of the round order a little as we go. But we're still here.
Somehow. But thank you all for joining us. We will be back for round 3, or maybe that'll be round 2 and this will be round. Either way, we'll have another episode coming to you in some order.
All right. Take care.
The Rounds 2 Residency podcast is powered by MedEd University. Join us at meded.university and tune in next week for more research and rotations resources to help you on your residency journey.